The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about being too busy. See, with today's pandemic and everything going on in our current lives, there is a common thing that people come up with as an excuse. They come up with this excuse as if it gives them a right to be busy, as if it gives them this excuse to not have to show up. But if you're listening to this podcast today, it is for those of you who are using the excuse of being too busy with their business to make other things a priority. And not only that, if we're not careful with making busy an excuse, we can often let people down. We can often not make people a priority. We can get completely out of balance with our life, with our business, to the point where this ultimately affects you more than anything else. And so if you're listening to this today, I want to segue into this episode and just simply open up a conversation from a place of someone who has struggled with this himself. About 5-6 years ago, I can remember that my business was my number one priority. I was completely out of alignment with, the way I was living, the way I was showing up. Even I would say as a businessman, I was even just kind of this, one-sided, out of balance person where I'd literally put business ahead of everything else. And so the minute I got up, I would immediately start working on my business. And virtually the last thing I would do is oftentimes texting clients, hey, I'll see you tomorrow morning. And inside of doing that, I was making a statement that my business was my number one priority, because the first thing that I did when I got up was immediately go into my business. The last thing that I did before I went to bed was go out of my business. And so whatever I start my day with or end my day with is my priority. And so as we get into today's episode, I want to talk about being busy and how we use this as our excuse to not show up in life, whether it be inside of our marriage, whether it be inside of our, relationship with our kids, whether it even be inside of our health or spirituality. But remember this, if you're too busy, your priorities are going to end up getting switched around. If you're too busy, things are going to come long before yourself. If you're too busy, I want you to think of being too busy as someone who spends time. And if you think about spending time, I've done a previous episode on this, but spending time, if you think about spending money, very rarely do you get anything back when you spend money. The only thing you may get back is some change, but you ultimately lose money when you spend money. Just like when you get change back, it's not the full amount that you had when you originally purchased something. It's now at a completely different level. And I want you to think about this. There's being busy, spending time, wasting time, not getting the full amount back. And then there's investing. There's investing, which means we are typically going to get paid back some type of dividend, whether it come in some other form. But as we think about this, I want you to think about this in a different context. Where are you spending your time? How much time are you spending? Where are you investing your time? And where are your investments growing? Because I know this, the times that I use busy as my excuse were the times that I was spending my money, spending my time, spending my energy on things that didn't give me a return. And so even though I was working in my business, spending more and more time inside of that, I was losing track of the priorities that I had had in my life and the priorities that were important to me. Things like, even just taking time with God to grow in my relationship, to read, whether it be the Bible or to pray or invest in time with Him, whether it be investing in time with myself, to where I was investing in quality time, to where I had some specific habits that put myself first, that I was making the first 2 to 3 hours every single day my priority. I was investing time into my health and working on my fitness. I was, investing time into, nutrition and all these other things. I was investing time with my wife. See, in these last 5-6 years, I would say the biggest transformation I made is I went from making business my number one priority to actually making God, myself, my wife, and my kids my number one priority, my number 1, 2, and 3 priority. And in doing that, it actually helped me make my business a bigger priority. See, what you feed grows inside of your marriage, and what you starve dies. What you feed grows inside of your relationship you have with your kids, and if you starve it, typically that relationship dies. But this is where meaningful conversations come into play. Having connection with your spouse, date nights, and then investing with your kids, investing in their future, sitting down and eating together as a family, going to sports with them, even inside of that, maybe even coaching them with sports. But the minute I made all of these other things a priority, the busyness went away. The excuse of being busy went away, even though I was investing in my kids, investing in my marriage, investing in my relationship with myself and God. One of the things that I started to see was me actually getting paid back dividends. And when I say back dividends, it could be in the form of love. It could be in the form of affection. It could be in the form of, energy and just, not feeling like I went home and walking around on eggshells. But busy was actually getting in the way of me growing my business because I had the excuse, I had the story that I had to be busy in my business, working from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night. And yet, if I would have really boiled it down, I probably could have found 2 to 3 hours in there every single day where I wasn't specifically working on something. And so as I would understand this and later change this, I would go into my business after making all these other things a priority, and I would find that my business actually grew more the more that I made my wife, my kids, myself, and God a priority first and put them on the list prior to my business. And so maybe you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, but you don't get it. I'm just really busy at work. And listen, I used to tell myself the same thing. The difference is there's things like social media that can get us distracted, busier, And the story of being busy isn't mean you're working any harder, doesn't mean you're working any more effectively. In fact, I have found that it actually is the opposite. See, what you are missing out on by being busy is a relationship with God, is a relationship with yourself, is a relationship with your spouse, and a relationship with your kids. But the real question I want to leave you with today, and as we get into today, is where in your life do you need to make yourself a priority? Maybe it's inside of your physical fitness. Maybe you're overweight. Or maybe you've just decided that fitness hasn't been as important to you. Maybe it's inside of your relationship with God, and you found it as a burden to read, pray, maybe even go to church weekly. Maybe it's just in the first thing that you do every single day when you get up. Right now, the first thing you do is go check Facebook. You go check Instagram and what's been going on there. See, I found that social media is one of the ways that we stay really busy. We don't get a lot of results, but we get distracted a lot from social media. And so as you listen to this today, think about some areas of your life that are keeping you busy, keeping you distracted from what it is that truly matters and the priorities that really matter the most in your life. Because what I know is this: those priorities will take over any area of your life if you allow them. The priorities of business will overthrow everything else because it's one of the easiest places to go. At least that's been my experience as a business owner. On the other side of that, I've seen a lot of women make their kids their number one priority. And in doing that, they've lost time with themselves. They've, lost time with their spouse. They've lost time with their, relationship with God. And ultimately, this is the business that they're choosing to put first. Now, I get it. Kids often are the most important things, but we also have to remember that, hey, if you're not showing up for your best, your kids are getting the worst part of you, not the best part of you. And so if you really want to make a shift inside of this, you're going to have to drop the story of being busy. You're going to have to stop telling people that you're busy. You're going to have to start telling people and telling yourself the truth. Am I really busy, or am I just distracted? And in being distracted, what is it actually holding me back from? What is it holding me back from in accomplishing in my relationship with myself, my spouse, my kids, my God, and ultimately the growth that I want in and out and around my business? Because you have to challenge that story if you want to change the result that you ultimately want. If you want balance in your life, busy is not going to give you that. If you want to be intentional about areas of your life, busy isn't going to give you that. And so if you're listening to this today, what is the new story that you could begin to tell yourself instead of relying on the story of, hey, I'm busy, or I'm just really busy right now? Because busy gets in the way of you making everything else a priority in and around your life. So I want to thank you guys for being on here today. If you have any questions, comments, or you would like to step inside of the Habit-Based Lifestyle Business Program, feel free to reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse